I was super duper nervous and concerned going into this finale of Moon Knight on Disney Plus because the final episode, and there was a lot to wrap up in this final episode, so it was a bit concerning, like, how are they going to be able to do this and actually do it well? Because that's been one of the big problems with a lot of these other MCU Disney Plus series, is they start off amazing, and then it's just rushed in the end, and it doesn't have a good closure. But this does, because I freaking love this. Honestly, I think it might even be my favorite episode. Now, that could just be because all this, the cool episode with all the cool superhero stuff and all that, which, honestly, is probably why I like it the most. But it's just, probably because I didn't have huge expectations. Like, I mean, obviously I've loved this show so far, but again, there was so much they had to do with this episode. I wasn't really expecting them to do it that well, so I kind of wasn't really looking forward to it. Like, when I woke up this morning at like 3 a.m., I was like, oh, alright, I guess we'll watch it. And then I did, and I loved it, because this was really an amazing episode. I mean, it was very fast-paced, it was very quick, which, again, there was a lot they had to do, so it's understandable. Would have been nice if we had a little extra time, but overall, I think they did a fairly good job wrapping up this season/series, because this was actually planned as a mini-series. So who knows if we're getting a season 2, or when, or if we're even going to see Oscar Isaac as Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, Moon Knight ever again in the MCU, because he hasn't signed a new contract yet, at least as far as we're aware. But I have a feeling we're going to see him pop up somewhere. I'm hoping a Moon Knight Season 2, especially given this insane post-credit scene, which when it first started, I was a little confused, like, okay, what is this? And then it ended, and oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited for the future of this character in the MCU. But guys, let's not waste any more time. We need to jump into this and break down the season/series finale of the Moon Knight Disney Plus series. So guys, of course, quick spoiler warning. If you've not yet seen the episode, make sure to go check it out on Disney Plus. But for now, let's go and check out Moon Knight Episode 6. Which, actually, very oddly, at least at this time, the episode has no title. At least if you go on Disney Plus, the episode is just called Episode 6. I don't know if that's just a mistake, they're going to fix it later, or if the episode is literally just called Episode 6. I don't know for sure. But either way, let's go ahead and jump into this and break down the Moon Knight finale. So anyway, we begin the episode with Haro's men bringing Mark's body up out of the water and taking that little statue thing away from him. So then he upgrades his magic staff. And then after they leave, Layla grabs the scarab. Now, Haro, now that he has this upgraded power from Amit, he goes around and just starts judging souls and, killing people, basically. Where Taweret actually speaks to Layla through one of these dead bodies, and she tells him that she has to free Khonshu so that Mark can return to life. So this leads us back to the pyramid. Everybody's going back to the pyramid. Arthur Haro and his men are going back. Layla kind of sneaks in there with him. And when he gets there, he kills all the other gods that we saw in the previous episodes, or at least their avatars. And then also, of course, releases Amit. This was his big goal for the season, and he finally accomplishes it. And he actually becomes her avatar. But what I loved about this, though, is that she even says, like, your scales are unbalanced. Like, there's, like you're not pure like you think you are. And I love how he even admits that and says, like, I understand that, so if you need to rid the world of me, I'm fine with that. Like that's how committed he is to this cause, and that's kind of crazy. But like I said, Layla also snuck in there as well, and so she releases Khonshu. And of course, when Khonshu first gets there, he's like, oh, I no longer sense Mark Spector in this world. You should be my new avatar. And of course, she declines. But then he goes out there and he fights Khonshu. I mean, Arthur Haro and Amit. But then we go back to where we ended off last week's episode, episode 5, with Mark Spector now finally making it to the afterlife, his heart being balanced after Stephen Grant just sacrificed himself. But this is when Mark realizes that, as beautiful as this place is and quiet and peaceful, he can't just leave Steven behind. So he sacrifices his afterlife to go back for Steven. So he goes back there, he finds Steven in the Duat, and he has this really cool speech monologue where he's talking about how, like, he needs him, and, like, you are my superpower and all this stuff. It's a really great speech. And so then their heart becomes whole again. They both turn to stone, and then their heart becomes whole again. And then they are freed, the gates open, and now they can return to life, which is then when Khonshu revives his Moon Knight, and Khonshu does make a promise to release them when he's done. So now we have Moon Knight back in action, and that's one of the biggest things I've been disappointed with in the series, is that it's a Moon Knight series, but you've barely seen any Moon Knight in this show so far. There's been what we have seen of Moon Knight has been really cool, especially back in, like, I think it was episode 2 or 3 maybe. There was some really cool stuff there. But this is definitely the best of Moon Knight in this episode. Like, seeing him actually fly around and glide and, you know, all this cool different stuff. It was awesome. It was visually really fun to watch. And so we also have actually Layla becoming a superhero as well, as Taweret takes over Layla as her temporary avatar. So I thought this was pretty cool, because this is something I talked about a couple episodes ago with, I believe, episode 4, when the name of Layla's father was mentioned, because in the comics that character became the superhero known as the Scarlet Scarab. And I believe there's also a storyline in the comics where the Scarlet Scarab's daughter took on the mantle of the Scarlet Scarab. So this is something that I was kind of theorizing back then about, like, oh, hey, maybe at some point in the future, Layla will become a superhero as the Scarlet Scarab, and that's basically what we get here. I mean, they never officially call her that, but it's a very similar looking outfit to the Scarlet Scarab from the comics, and I actually love how it was used here as well, like with her wings and everything. Kind of reminded me of like the Falcon, except actually with superpowers and not just mechanical wings. So I thought that was really cool, seeing Layla get in on the action here. So we got Moon Knight versus Arthur Haro, and we got Ammit versus Khonshu, where actually the more corrupt souls that are snatched, the bigger Ammit becomes. So it's like super huge giant Ammit versus super huge giant Khonshu. That was really fun to watch. And then we get this really interesting moment at the end where Haro is actually winning. He is about to kill Mark Spector, when all of a sudden Mark, he blacks out once again. And when he wakes up, Haro is brutally beaten. Not completely dead yet, but he's brutally beaten. And it wasn't Mark or Steven. This is our third mystery personality that has been teased this whole time, that you would have thought would have been revealed by now. But when we do get the reveal in that post-credit scene, chef's kiss. It is so good. But after this, they take Arthur Haro back to the pyramid and perform a ritual to imprison Ammit inside him. So they end up doing that. The day is kind of saved after that. And then Khonshu actually lives up to his promise, surprisingly. And he actually releases both Mark and Steven. Where then we have Steven waking up in the mental hospital again with Dr. Haro, which I was super confused at this point. Like, what is going on? Are they just going to reveal that, oh, that was all a dream, or that was all made up that whole time? Luckily, no, that's not what happened. But it's confusing, though, as well, because then all of a sudden, Dr. Haro has bloody footprints, and not exactly sure what was going on there. But I love how Steven says, like, oh, we'd rather be out there saving the world. So they're going over to a life of superheroing. So I absolutely love that. Although I am wondering how they're going to do that, though, without the powers of Moon Knight and Mr. Knight. But I guess we'll see how that turns out. But anyway, after this, Steven says his latest gators, and then he wakes up in bed in his apartment, and you have that really cool 60s song playing from, I'm pretty sure it was the first episode, A Man Without Love. Great song, really gets stuck in your head. It's kind of like the theme song of this show at this point, basically. So that was really awesome. And then I love how he falls on the ground, and he's like, oh, I can't believe this is my life. And then that's where it ends. And this really is the perfect ending. And you know, like I said, this show was planned as a miniseries, and it works as a miniseries, but of course, because it's the MCU, we want to see more, and whether that is a Moon Knight Season 2, or just seeing his story continue in possibly a Moon Knight movie, or possibly just see him later in a Midnight Suns team-up or some other team-ups with other MCU characters. I feel like that could be cool. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have got to talk about this post-credit scene because, wow, like I said, when it first started, I was super confused because it was like Arthur Haro is now in a mental hospital, which obviously makes sense, and then he's taken out to this limo, where then we have Khonshu sitting in the back, and Khonshu, he is not fully in his regular form. Like, he has the body of, like, Mr. Knight, but with Khonshu's head, so it's kind of weird to look at. But anyway, that's what's happening here. And so he talks about how, like, oh, Mark Spector is no longer my avatar, but he's more troubled than he thought. So then that's when he says, meet Jake Lockley. And then the window between the front and the back of the limo opens up, and you see that third personality of Oscar Isaac's character here is Jake Lockley. And he is working for Khonshu. Now, what's interesting here, though, is that Jake Lockley is actually speaking Spanish. I don't know if he did that in the comics, but it is interesting, though, because in last week's episode, there was part of the episode towards the beginning where when Mark was in the mental hospital talking to Dr. Haro, he all of a sudden had a New York accent and was all of a sudden, like, super aggressive. So a lot of people thought, like, hey, is that Jake Lockley in that scene? But Jake Lockley speaks Spanish, apparently. So, I don't know. But then you really do get to see that this is the most brutal version of this person, because then he ends up shooting Arthur Haro and then drives off, and you see the limo, the license plate says Spectre. It's SPKTR. So, yeah, that is pretty awesome. And again, with this being a miniseries, I could see that working as, like, a cool cliffhanger that, like, never gets followed up on. Like, that could work. This could still work as a miniseries, but I want to see this continue, and I want to see this story explored. I want to see Jake Lockley because he looks great here as well. Like, super comics accurate to his appearance in the comics, so that's great. But I don't know. It's interesting. I just love this episode. I really did love this episode. I know a lot of people won't just because it feels rushed, and it definitely does feel rushed, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. I feel like it did a nice job of wrapping up this story. And again, I am excited to see where things go in the future, whether that is Moon Knight Season 2 or a movie or somewhere else within the MCU. I just hope that we get to see more of Oscar Isaac's character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, guys, anyway, let me know your thoughts on this episode down in the comments below. What did you think about the Moon Knight season/series finale, Moon Knight episode 6? And what did you think about the whole series overall? Where do you want to see things go from here, in a season 2 or some other project set within the MCU? So, guys, thanks for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep it up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.